think theater is extremely important in understanding law and particular periods. So I think that theater in the 17th century has a very special place because it was a form that was very popular. It was a form that everyone would see, from the so-called groundlings who went to Shakespeare's theater to the king. So it was a form that cross-cut all of society. So we might think of television as having that effect, or film as being more of that kind of form today. I'm working on a book called Theaters of Pardoning, Sovereignty and Judgment from Shakespeare to Kant. And that book really focuses on the 17th century and 17th century England as a period when literature and law were in this extremely tight relation, and in particular, where theater and law were in an extremely tight relation. Now, the specific subject of the book is pardoning, and I'm looking at that both in terms of the political theory of pardoning at the time, which had to do with monarchical sovereignty and the control of the king over the pardon power as one of the rights of sovereignty. I argue that there's a way in which you can look at the shift from monarchical pardoning to parliamentary oblivion as an index of the shift in sovereignty from king to parliament that occurred over the course of the 17th century, and that set up the later idea of parliamentary sovereignty that was so important in Britain in the 18th century. One of the conclusions of this book is that part of the deficit in mercy that we see in today's society, a deficit that's indexed by the fact that there's been a decline in gubernatorial pardons. There had been a notable decline in presidential pardons. President Obama actually wound up being an exception in his second term, pardoning more people than had been done in recent history. But that there's a decline in mercy, and that's directly related to the relationship that was established in the 17th century between pardoning and sovereignty. So one of my arguments is that decline in pardoning actually results from the very strong association developed in the 17th century between sovereignty and the pardon power. And one way in which we can see this is that in Article 2, one of the most unchecked powers that's given to the president in Article 2 of our U.S. Constitution is the power to pardon. And this has been interpreted as a fairly absolute power over the course of constitutional history. Now, I think that Americans are uncomfortable with this idea that some relic of sovereignty in the form of the pardon power is still vested in the president. And one of the things that I try to suggest towards the end of my book is that we might revisit these 17th century debates about pardoning, and in particular, some kind of democratic alternatives that suggest democratic forms of pardoning to reinvigorate the idea of mercy in our society today.